My name is Melva. I'm 32 and I work as a wedding photographer in Boston. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent years capturing other people's happiest moments, while my own sister stole my happiness right from under me. Aaron was supposed to be my forever. Instead, he became her husband. When that gold-embossed invitation arrived, something broke inside me, but they never expected I'd actually show up. If only you could have seen my sister's face when she spotted me sitting there in the third row. Before I get into this story, let me know where you're watching from. In the comments, hit that like and subscribe button and settle in for a tale of betrayal you won't believe. I used to believe that the bond between sisters was unbreakable. Growing up, Elaine was always my shadow, trailing 3 years behind me, but desperate to catch up. I was the protective older sister, the one who scared away playground bullies, and later taught her how to apply eyeliner without poking her eye out. We shared clothes, secrets, and dreams on our bunk beds. I always thought we'd be in each other's weddings someday, cheering each other on through life's biggest moments. Our parents raised us to be close. Dad worked long hours at his accounting firm, and Mum ran a small bakery downtown. They emphasized family loyalty above all else, repeating their favorite saying, "In this world, your sister will be there when everyone else is gone." The irony of those words still stings. After college, I turned my photography hobby into a thriving career. Wedding photography wasn't my original plan, but after shooting a friend's ceremony as a favor, I discovered I had a talent for capturing authentic emotions on what's supposedly the happiest day of people's lives. My business grew steadily through word of mouth, and within 5 years, I was booking premium weddings across New England. It was at my college roommate, Tara's wedding, where I first met Aaron. He was the best man, tall with dark, wavy hair and a smile that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. During the reception, I caught him watching me work several times. When I was packing up my equipment, he approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "For the woman who hasn't stopped working all night," he said, handing me one. "I'm Aaron, by the way." "Melva," I replied, "and I actually love what I do, so it hardly feels like work." That began our conversation about passion projects and career fulfillment that lasted until the venue staff started stacking chairs around us. He asked for my number, and I surprised myself by giving it to him. Normally, I maintained professional boundaries at weddings I photographed, but something about Aaron felt different. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant where Aaron knew the owner. He ordered in perfect Italian, impressing both me and the waitstaff. Over candlelight, he told me about his family's real estate development business, his dreams of expanding it, and his love of sailing. I shared stories of dramatic wedding disasters I'd salvaged and my hopes to eventually open my own photography studio. The relationship progressed naturally. Movie nights became weekend trips to coastal towns. My camera captured our journey together. Aaron teaching me to sail in Newport, us hiking in Vermont, during fall building snowmen outside his condo after the first big storm. Each photo showed us growing closer, building what I thought was an unshakable foundation. When Elaine first met Aaron at our parents' anniversary dinner, she seemed genuinely happy for me. "He's perfect for you, Mel," she said as we washed dishes together. "The way he looks at you when you're not watching, it's like you're the only person in the world." I remember hugging her, grateful for her approval. If only I had noticed how her gaze lingered on him throughout the evening. After 2 years together, Aaron proposed during a weekend at his family's beach house. We walked along the shore at sunset when he stopped, pulled out a velvet box, and dropped to one knee on the wet sand. The ring was a cushion-cut diamond that caught the fading sunlight, exactly the style I had once mentioned admiring in a vintage shop window. "Melva, you've shown me what real partnership feels like. Will you continue this journey as my wife?" I cried, nodded, and fell into his arms. That night we called our families. Elaine squealed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "I better be your maid of honor," she declared, before congratulating us properly. My parents were thrilled immediately, suggesting we could use Mum's bakery connections for the wedding cake. Planning began immediately. We secured a venue, a restored barn with string lights and wooden beams in the Berkshires, for a date 14 months out. I knew exactly what I wanted, having observed countless weddings, but was careful not to become the stereotypical bridezilla. Aaron seemed interested in the planning process, which I found endearing compared to stories I'd heard from brides whose grooms checked out entirely. Elaine threw herself into maid of honor duties with unexpected enthusiasm. She organized my bridal shower, started a Pinterest board for dresses, and texted daily with ideas and questions. At the time, I appreciated her involvement, interpreting it as excitement for my happiness. Now I recognize it as research. The first warning sign came 6 months into our engagement. Aaron began working late more frequently, explaining that a major development project was in a critical phase. Our date nights dwindled from weekly to occasionally, and when we were together, his phone constantly buzzed with notifications. "Can't you turn that off for one dinner?" I asked during a rare night out. "Sorry, it's work. You know how it is right now," he'd reply, placing the phone face down, but checking it the moment I looked away. I made excuses for him, told myself it was temporary stress. After all, I had busy seasons with back-to-back weddings where I barely saw him. Relationships required understanding during career-intensive periods. At least, that's what I told myself as I fell asleep alone again, his side of the bed, cold and empty. Looking back, I should have recognized that the subtle shift in our relationship coincided with Elaine's increasing presence in our lives. She began stopping by Aaron's office to drop off lunch I'd supposedly asked her to deliver. She volunteered to handle vendor meetings when I had scheduling conflicts with clients. Once I came home to find them huddled over wedding plans at our dining table, laughing about some inside joke they quickly didn't explain. "Just finalizing the seating chart," Aaron said too quickly. "Your sister's a lifesaver," he added later that night. "So much more organized than you." It was a small comment, but it stung. The comparisons began appearing more frequently after that. Elaine was more punctual. Elaine remembered details better. Elaine understood his work pressures. Each comparison chipped away at my confidence so gradually I barely noticed the erosion. I wish I could say I sensed what was happening, that some sisterly intuition warned me of the betrayal brewing beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect lives. The truth is more painful. I was completely blindsided, trusting both the sister I'd protected all my life and the man who had promised to build a future with me. The day I discovered their betrayal began like any other. It was a Saturday in October, and I was photographing a small garden wedding that ended earlier than expected when an abrupt thunderstorm forced everyone indoors. I arrived home around 3 instead of the 7 o'clock I had texted Aaron to expect me. The apartment was silent when I entered, dropping my camera bags in the hallway. "Aaron," I called out, but received no answer. I changed into comfortable clothes and settled on the couch, thinking I'd surprise him with takeout when he returned from whatever weekend errand he was running. His phone sat on the coffee table, forgotten in his rush to leave, something that never happened given how attached he was to it lately. I picked it up initially, just planning to order food through his delivery app, which had our credit card saved. That's when a notification banner slid across the top of the screen. "Elaine, can't wait to see you. She still doesn't suspect anything." My stomach dropped. I told myself there must be an innocent explanation, perhaps a surprise party they were planning. With shaking hands, I opened the message thread, violating his privacy in a way I never had before. What I found shattered my world in an instant. Months of messages between them, intimate photos, plans made while I was working at weddings, cruel jokes at my expense, comparisons of their connection versus what he had with me. The evidence of their affair sprawled across the screen in nauseating detail. One message from Aaron to my sister stood out among the rest. "M was a stepping stone. You're the destination I really wanted." I sat there for hours scrolling through their betrayal, each message another dagger. The front door finally opened around 6, and Aaron walked in with a shopping bag. "You're home early," he said, his smile faltering when he saw his phone in my hand and my tear-stained face. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely audible. He didn't pretend not to understand. Setting down the bag, he sighed as if relieved to finally stop pretending. 4 months officially, though there were feelings before that. "With my sister." It wasn't a question. "It just happened, Melva. We tried to fight it." "You tried to fight it?" I stood up, rage temporarily overshadowing heartbreak. "You proposed to me 6 months ago. Was that before or after you started sleeping with my sister?" "Don't make this uglier than it needs to be," he said coldly, suddenly a stranger wearing my fiancé's face. "These things happen. Elaine and I connected on a different level. She understands me in ways you never could." "Does she understand that you're a cheater?" I hurled back. "That you're the type of man who proposes to one sister while lusting after another? Elaine is more compatible with me," he continued, as if explaining a simple business decision. "She's more organized, more ambitious. She knows what she wants. And I don't. I've built my business from nothing. I've supported your dreams. I've planned our future." "That's the problem," Aaron said, reaching for his phone, which I clutched in my white-knuckled grip. "You're always so busy with your business, always at other people's weddings instead of focusing on ours. Elaine makes time for what's important." I threw his phone at him, a small satisfaction as he fumbled to catch it. "Where is she now, too cowardly to face me? She thought it would be better if I talked to you alone first." The betrayal doubled, knowing they had planned this conversation, strategized how to break my heart most efficiently. I pulled the engagement ring off my finger and slammed it on the coffee table. "Get out," I whispered, then louder. "Get out. Melva, be reasonable. This is my apartment too. You can come back for your things tomorrow when I'm gone. I'll leave the keys with the doorman. I never want to see either of you again." After he left, I called Elaine repeatedly. Straight to voicemail every time. I left increasingly desperate messages ranging from sobbing pleas for explanation to rage-filled accusations. She never answered. Later, I learned she had turned off her phone and gone to a hotel with Aaron to give me space to process, their cowardice disguised as consideration. The following weeks passed in a blur of grief. I cancelled appointments and returned deposits to clients, unable to photograph happy couples without breaking down. My friend Layla moved in temporarily, forcing me to eat and shower when basic self-care seemed impossible. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks, my clothes hanging off my frame like I was playing dress-up in someone else's closet. The worst part was the loss of my family support system. My parents were horrified by Elaine's actions, but stopped short of cutting her off completely. "She's still our daughter," my mother explained tearfully over the phone. "What she did was terrible, but we can't choose between our children. She chose," I responded bitterly. "She chose Aaron over me, over our relationship, over everything." Dad was more firmly in my corner, refusing to speak to Elaine for weeks, but eventually he too began the awkward dance of divided loyalty. I understood their impossible position, but felt abandoned nevertheless. The family I had known my entire life was fundamentally broken, the trust between us shattered like a wedding portrait thrown against a wall. Friends tried their best, but couldn't comprehend the magnitude of my loss. It wasn't just a broken engagement, those happened all the time. It was the dual betrayal by the two people I had trusted most in the world. How do you rebuild your ability to trust after that? How do you look at any relationship without wondering about the secret conversations happening behind your back? I avoided family gatherings, making excuses about work or illness. The thought of seeing Elaine, of watching her wear my ring, plan my wedding, live my life, was unbearable. Thanksgiving passed with me alone in my new studio apartment, eating takeout and watching mindless television. Christmas brought a card from my parents with a gift certificate. but no mention of the family dinner I was clearly not attending. Social media became a minefield. I blocked both Aaron and Elaine, but mutual friends would inadvertently share updates. I learned through these digital glimpses that they had moved in together, that Aaron had taken her to Paris, a trip we had planned for our honeymoon. Each new revelation was a fresh wound on a heart that couldn't seem to heal. My therapist, Diana, whom I started seeing weekly, helped me understand that grief isn't linear. Some days will feel like progress, she explained. Others will feel like you're back at day one. Both are normal. She was right. Some mornings, I would wake up feeling almost like my old self, ready to reclaim my life. By afternoon, a triggered memory would send me spiraling back into darkness. The unpredictability of grief was almost as exhausting as the grief itself. The betrayal altered me fundamentally. The trusting, open-hearted woman who had fallen in love with Aaron was gone. In her place was someone guarded, someone who analysed every interaction for hidden meanings, someone who expected betrayal around every corner. I hated this new version of myself, almost as much as I hated them for creating her. 6 months after the breakup, I was slowly rebuilding the scattered pieces of my life. I had returned to photography, though I focused on family portraits and corporate events rather than weddings for the time being. My new apartment was finally feeling like home rather than an escape hatch. I had established a routine of therapy, yoga, and weekly dinners with friends who had proven their loyalty during my darkest days. The morning it arrived was unusually bright for Boston in early spring. Sunlight streamed through my kitchen window as I sorted through the Daily Mail, bills, advertisements, a postcard from Layla, who was travelling in Spain. Then I saw it, a cream-coloured envelope with ornate calligraphy spelling my name and address. Even before opening it, I knew exactly what it contained. The invitation was printed on thick paper, with gold embossing the kind I had once bookmarked in wedding planning magazines. Aaron James Reynolds and Elaine Marie Bennett request the honour of your presence as they unite in marriage. The date was set for June, barely 9 months after our relationship imploded. They had wasted no time. What made it infinitely worse was the handwritten note tucked inside in my sister's familiar looping script, Melva. I know this is unexpected, but it would mean the world to me if you would attend as my special guest. Despite everything, you're still my sister, and I want you there on my special day. We both do. Please consider it. Love, Elaine. The audacity was breathtaking. The casual, despite everything, as if she had borrowed a sweater without asking rather than stolen my fiancé. The presumptuous, my special day, for a wedding that had once been in the planning stages with me as the bride. The we both do, suggesting Aaron also wished for my presence, as if that would be any sort of comfort. I sat on my kitchen floor, the invitation clutched in trembling hands, and sobbed until my throat was raw. Just when I thought I had regained my footing, they had sent this emotional hand grenade into my carefully reconstructed life. The phone rang that evening. My mother, of course. Somehow she had timed her call perfectly, probably having received confirmation from Elaine that the invitation had been delivered. "Have you seen it?" she asked without preamble. "Hello to you too, Mum. Yes, I've seen my sister's attempt to humiliate me further." "Melva, that's not fair. She's trying to make peace." I laughed, a harsh sound without humour. Peace would be moving to another country with him and never contacting me again. This is performative reconciliation, so she doesn't have to feel guilty about what she did. My mother sighed, the sound weary with months of navigating the minefield between her daughters. "The wedding is happening whether you attend or not. Wouldn't it be better for everyone if we could begin healing as a family?" "Better for everyone except me," I replied. "Do you have any idea what you're asking? To sit there and watch them exchange vows that should have been mine, to smile and pretend I'm happy for their betrayal? I'm asking you to be the bigger person. For the family. The family that Elaine had no problem fracturing when it suited her. That family." The conversation ended in a stalemate, as they all seem to these days. My mother extracting a promise that I would think about it, me knowing already that attendance was impossible. The following days brought an onslaught of opinions from everyone in my life. Layla was firmly in the hell no camp, suggesting I book an international trip during the wedding weekend, just to be sure I couldn't be guilt-tripped into attending. Maybe meet a gorgeous Italian man while you're at it, she added, trying to lighten the mood. My cousin Rachel took a more pragmatic approach. If you don't go, they control the narrative. Everyone will whisper about poor Melva, too heartbroken to attend. If you go looking amazing, head held high, you change the story. My father called his gruff voice uncharacteristically gentle. No one would blame you for skipping this, sweetheart. I'll support whatever you decide. His tacit permission to prioritize my well-being over family appearances meant more than he could know. My therapist, Diana, was careful not to give direct advice, but helped me explore my authentic feelings beneath the reactionary anger. What would attending mean to you? What would avoiding it mean? There's no right answer here, only what feels right for your healing process. I spent nights staring at my ceiling, turning over possibilities in my mind. The invitation sat on my kitchen counter, a daily reminder of the choice before me. Attending felt impossible, like volunteering for torture. Not attending felt like conceding defeat, like admitting their actions still held power over me. The turning point came during a late-night conversation with my college friend Taylor, one of the few who had maintained friendships with both me and Elaine throughout the mess. She hadn't brought up the wedding, carefully avoiding the topic whenever we spoke. You know, don't you, about why they're rushing this wedding? I asked suddenly, during a pause in our conversation about her new job. Taylor hesitated. I've heard things. I didn't want to upset you with gossip. I need to know. Please, she sighed. Aaron's family business is struggling, has been for a while apparently. They overextended on some development that isn't selling well. Elaine just got that big promotion at Sterling Financial. The timing is convenient. The pieces clicked into place. Aaron's increasing interest in Elaine had coincided with his family business troubles and her career advancement. The man who had once spoken passionately about building his family legacy was now apparently marrying for financial stability and connections. That night, I made my decision. I would attend the wedding not as the devastated ex-fiancé or the supportive sister, but as a witness to a union built on betrayal and convenience rather than love. I wouldn't cause a scene or object dramatically during the ceremony. My presence alone would be statement enough. I picked up the invitation and for the first time noticed the RSVP card still tucked inside. With steady hands, I checked "will attend" and dropped it in the mail the next morning. Game on. Making the decision to attend was one thing. Actually preparing myself emotionally and physically for the event was another challenge entirely. In the weeks following my RSVP, I fluctuated between fierce determination and paralyzing doubt. Some mornings, I would wake up convinced I had made the right choice, ready to face them with dignity. By evening, panic would set in, and I'd find myself drafting apologetic emails explaining why I couldn't attend after all. During this time, I became almost obsessive about understanding what had really happened between Aaron, Elaine, and me. If I was going to walk into this situation, I wanted all the information possible. Through mutual friends and careful conversations, I began piecing together a clearer timeline than the one I'd been given. Taylor continued to be my most valuable source, reluctantly sharing what she knew after I convinced her it would help my healing process. Aaron approached Elaine first, not the other way around, she revealed during one of our coffee meetings. He started texting her with questions about your surprise birthday party about 7 months ago, but the conversations quickly became personal. Before or after our engagement, I asked, needing to know exactly how much of my relationship had been a lie. After, but not by much. Maybe a few weeks. She hesitated before continuing. Melva, there's something else. The promotion Elaine got. Aaron's father sits on the board at Sterling Financial. The connection was there all along. This new information shifted my understanding of their relationship fundamentally. What I had painfully accepted as a genuine, if terribly timed, emotional connection now looked more calculated. Aaron had potentially seen Elaine as a business opportunity, a connection to financial stability when his family needed it most. My therapist cautioned me against creating narratives that might not be accurate. Be careful about assigning motivations without direct evidence, Diana warned during one session. While this new information might be true, using it to paint them as purely calculating might be a way of protecting yourself from the more painful possibility that they did develop genuine feelings for each other. She was right, of course. The messy truth probably contained elements of both, opportunism and genuine attraction, which somehow made it worse rather than better. Regardless of their exact motivations, understanding the business connection strengthened my resolve to attend. This wasn't just about my personal heartbreak anymore. It was about witnessing the full truth of a relationship that had begun in deception and seemed to be continuing along the same path. As the wedding date approached, I channeled my nervous energy into practical preparation. If I was going to attend, I would do so looking and feeling my absolute best. I started working with a personal trainer 3 times weekly, transforming grief-induced weight loss into toned strength. The physical exertion became therapeutic each rep and set burning away layers of hurt and replacing them with confidence. The dress selection was crucial. After trying on dozens of options, I found it, a deep emerald silk that contrasted with my auburn hair, fitted through the bodice with a subtle slit that showed just enough leg to be noticeable without being inappropriate for a family wedding. It was sophisticated, expensive looking, and nothing like anything Elaine had ever seen me wear. Most importantly, it looked nothing like the wedding gown I had selected for my own ceremony. I booked appointments for professional hair and makeup, scheduled a spa day for the day before, and even invested in subtle teeth whitening. These external preparations might have seemed shallow, but they formed a kind of armor I could wear into battle. The emotional preparation was more challenging. Diana suggested specific visualization exercises to help me remain centered during triggering moments. Imagine yourself surrounded by a protective bubble, she advised. Practice deep breathing techniques when you feel overwhelmed. Have a mantra ready that reminds you why you're there. My mantra became, I deserve to witness the truth. Simple but powerful, it reinforced that my attendance wasn't about revenge or creating drama. It was about facing reality head-on, no matter how painful. During this preparation period, an unexpected connection developed. Jackson, who had been Aaron's college roommate and a groomsman in our planned wedding, reached out via email. I declined being in the wedding party this time around, he wrote. Didn't sit right with me how everything went down. Just wanted to check if you're doing okay. We met for coffee, an initially awkward reunion that gradually eased into genuine conversation. Jackson had always been the most thoughtful of Aaron's friends, the one who remembered birthdays and asked meaningful questions. Now he became an unexpected ally, providing insights into Aaron's perspective without defending his actions. He's not the same guy I knew in college, Jackson admitted, stirring his coffee absently. The family business troubles changed him. His father's been putting enormous pressure on him to save the company somehow. I think he saw Elaine's connections as a solution and convinced himself it was love. That doesn't excuse what they did, I replied. No, it doesn't. Nothing could excuse that. He looked up, his expression earnest. You know, after you two broke up, he tried to justify it to me. Said some things about you that didn't match the woman I've known for years. I called him out on it, which is probably why I'm not standing beside him at the altar next month. This conversation with Jackson provided something unexpected. Validation from someone in Aaron's circle that I wasn't crazy, that the betrayal was as egregious as it felt. It also gave me valuable information. If Aaron was speaking negatively about me to friends, he was likely doing the same with family members who would be at the wedding. I needed to be prepared for potential coldness or awkwardness from his relatives. The night before the wedding, I stayed at an upscale hotel near the venue, rather than at my parents' house where the atmosphere would undoubtedly be tense. Layla joined me, providing moral support and practical assistance as I prepared. We ordered room service, watched mindless television, and avoided discussing what the next day would bring. As I lay in bed that night, doubt crept in one final time. Was I making a terrible mistake? Would attending only reopen wounds that had finally begun to heal? Was I giving Aaron and Elaine exactly what they wanted? An audience for their triumph? I pulled out my phone and typed out a message to my mother that I wouldn't be coming after all. My finger hovered over the send button as tears threatened. Then I remembered Taylor's revelations, Jackson's support, and all the strength I had built over these difficult months. I deleted the message, set my alarm, and closed my eyes, determined to face whatever tomorrow would bring. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, almost mockingly perfect weather for the occasion. I woke before my alarm, surprisingly calm after weeks of anxiety. The hotel room window offered a view of the Boston skyline, the city already bustling with weekend activity, oblivious to my personal drama about to unfold. Layla stirred in the adjacent bed. "Today's the day," she mumbled, reaching for her phone. "Still sure about this? As sure as I'll ever be," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. My hair and makeup appointments were scheduled for 9, giving me plenty of time before the 2 o'clock ceremony. The stylist created loose waves that framed my face elegantly, while the makeup artist gave me a sophisticated look with subtle, smoky eyes that made the green in my hazel eyes pop against the emerald dress. "Special occasion?" the makeup artist asked casually as she applied finishing touches. "You could say that," I answered, meeting my reflection's gaze with newfound confidence. The woman looking back at me wasn't a victim. She was a survivor, elegant and composed, ready to reclaim her dignity. Layla whistled when I emerged fully dressed. "Damn, Mel, if this doesn't make them regret everything, nothing will," I smiled, smoothing the silk fabric over my hips. This isn't about making them regret anything. It's about showing myself that they don't have power over me anymore. The wedding venue was the Grand Wellington Hotel, ironically, one of the locations Aaron and I had considered for our own ceremony before selecting the Berkshire Barn. Its limestone facade and ornate ballrooms represented old Boston money, precisely the image Aaron's family wished to project despite their current financial troubles. I arrived alone, having declined Layla's offer to accompany me. This was something I needed to face independently. The hotel lobby bustled with guests in formal attire, many of whom I recognized from both sides of the family. Conversations halted momentarily as I walked through whispers immediately following in my wake. I kept my chin up, offering polite smiles to those whose eyes I caught. Aaron's Aunt Patricia approached first, her expression a mix of surprise and discomfort. "Melva, dear, we didn't expect. That is, it's lovely to see you." "Thank you, Patricia. It's been too long," I replied smoothly, as if we were meeting at a routine family gathering, rather than her nephew's wedding to my sister. "Yes, well," she fumbled, clearly uncertain of the appropriate etiquette for such an unusual situation. "The ceremony will be starting soon, in the grand ballroom." I nodded my thanks and continued toward the ballroom, intercepted periodically by other guests with similar awkward greetings. Some seemed genuinely pleased to see me, others clearly disapproving of my attendance, but all uniformly shocked. The grand ballroom had been transformed into a lavish ceremony space with rows of white chairs facing an elaborate floral arch. I deliberately selected a seat in the third row on the bride's side, close enough to be unavoidably visible, but not so prominent as to appear attention-seeking. Perfect strategic positioning. My parents spotted me as they entered. Mum hurried over her expression, a mixture of relief and anxiety. "You came," she said, squeezing my hand. "Thank you for doing this for the family." "I'm not doing it for the family," I corrected gently. "I'm doing it for me." Dad joined us, giving my shoulder a gentle squeeze instead of his usual bear hug, as if afraid I might shatter under too much pressure. "You look beautiful, kiddo," he said gruffly. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine, Dad, really." And surprisingly, I meant it. The anxiety that had plagued me for weeks had transformed into a strange calm, a readiness to face whatever came next. They took their seats in the front row, leaving me alone again as the ballroom continued to fill. Aaron's parents entered his father Richard, nodding stiffly in my direction, while his mother Eleanor deliberately avoided eye contact. Their discomfort was palpable. Clearly they hadn't expected me to accept the invitation either. The music shifted, signaling the ceremony was about to begin. Guests hurried to their seats as the officiant and Aaron took their places beneath the floral arch. He looked handsome in his tailored tuxedo, though I noticed stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there during our relationship. His gaze scanned the gathering crowd, landing on me with visible shock. For a brief moment, his composed groom facade slipped, revealing uncertainty and perhaps a flicker of regret. I maintained eye contact, my expression neutral until he looked away first. Small victory. The bridesmaids processed down the aisle in pale gold dresses, a colour Elaine had once criticised when I suggested it for my own wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then the music swelled, guests rose to their feet, and the doors opened to reveal my sister in a designer gown that probably cost more than my annual rent. Elaine looked radiant, her blonde hair styled in an elaborate updo, her makeup flawless. As she took her first steps down the aisle on our father's arm, her eyes swept across the gathered guests with a practiced smile until she saw me. The change was instantaneous and dramatic. Her face drained of colour, the professional makeup suddenly stark against her pallor. Her step faltered slightly, causing our father to glance at her with concern. The confident smile wavered, replaced by an expression of naked shock and something else, fear. Our eyes locked in a moment that seemed to stretch endlessly, an entire unspoken conversation passing between us. In her gaze, I read confusion, guilt, and unmistakable panic. In mine, I hoped she saw nothing but calm acknowledgement of the truth we both knew: this moment was built on betrayal. She recovered quickly, plastering the smile back on and continuing her procession, though her movements had lost their earlier grace. Several guests who noticed our exchange glanced between us curiously, adding to the whispers that had followed me since arrival. Throughout the ceremony, Elaine's eyes kept darting to me, her concentration clearly broken. She stumbled over her vows twice, forcing the officiant to prompt her. Aaron appeared increasingly irritated by her distraction, squeezing her hands too tightly when she faltered. "I, Elaine, take you, Aaron, to be my lawfully wedded husband," she recited, her voice slightly trembling. As she spoke, promises of fidelity and honesty, our eyes met again briefly. The irony hung in the air between us, unacknowledged but unmistakable. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, a tangible tension filled the ballroom. Several guests actually turned to look at me, expecting drama. I remained perfectly still, my expression unchanged. My objection wasn't to their marriage, it was to the deception that had created it, and that objection had already been registered through my silent presence. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared, and applause filled the room as Aaron kissed Elaine with performative passion. I clapped politely, along with everyone else, maintaining the dignified composure I had promised myself. As the new couple proceeded back down the aisle, Aaron deliberately avoided looking in my direction. Elaine, however, couldn't seem to help herself. Her eyes found mine one final time as they passed my row, and in that moment, beneath the celebration and triumph, I glimpsed something unexpected: uncertainty. The foundation of her perfect day had been shaken by my presence, introducing a hairline crack in the facade of their happily ever after. The reception was held in an adjacent ballroom, a lavish affair with crystal chandeliers and centerpieces of white orchids. I considered skipping this portion. I had made my point during the ceremony, but decided to see the day through completely. Half measures weren't my style. I positioned myself at a table with distant cousins who knew little about the complicated history between the bridegroom and me. They were pleasantly surprised by my photography career, asking questions about my most interesting weddings and clients. The normal conversation was unexpectedly grounding amid the surreal circumstances. Throughout the cocktail hour, I was approached by various guests with awkward questions, thinly disguised as small talk. "So brave of you to come," one of Aaron's aunts commented, martini in hand. "I don't think I could have managed it in your position." "It's important to support family," I replied neutrally, letting her interpret that however she wished. Elaine's college roommate was more direct. "Aren't you angry? I would be furious." I smiled, taking a sip of champagne. Life is too short for anger to be my dominant emotion. These diplomatic responses became my shield, deflecting curiosity without creating drama. I was determined that no one would be able to report back to the happy couple that I had behaved with anything less than perfect grace. The real challenge came during the reception proper, when Aaron approached my table while Elaine was surrounded by bridesmaids across the room. He looked nervous, adjusting his bow tie repeatedly as he drew near. "Melva, I didn't think you'd come," he said, his voice low enough that my table mates couldn't hear. "Clearly," I replied, maintaining eye contact without blinking. "Yet here I am. Can we talk privately?" He gestured toward a quiet corner of the ballroom. I considered refusing, but realized this conversation was inevitable. Briefly, I agreed, excusing myself from the table. We moved to a relatively secluded spot near a decorative column far enough from other guests to speak without being overheard. Aaron shifted uncomfortably, looking everywhere but directly at me. "Why are you here?" he finally asked, an edge to his voice. "To make things awkward, to ruin Elaine's day." "I was invited," I replied simply, "by both of you according to the note." "Was that not sincere?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "We didn't think you'd actually accept. Elaine sent it as, I don't know, an olive branch or something." "An olive branch," I repeated, letting the absurdity of the phrase hang between us. "Is that what we're calling performative gestures designed to ease guilty consciences these days?" His jaw tightened. "Look, what happened between us was unfortunate, but—" "Unfortunate," I interrupted, my carefully maintained composure, slipping for the first time. "You cheated on me with my sister while we were planning our wedding. Unfortunate doesn't quite cover it, Aaron." He lowered his voice, glancing around to ensure we weren't being overheard. "People grow apart. Feelings change. It happens all the time." "Yes, people grow apart. They have honest conversations, they break up respectfully, they don't sneak around behind their partner's back with their future sister-in-law." I took a deep breath, reclaiming my calm. "But that's not really why we're standing here, is it? Tell me, how's the family business doing?" I heard the Westlake development isn't selling well. His expression hardened. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? It seems rather convenient that your interest in Elaine coincided with her promotion at Sterling Financial, the same company where your father sits on the board, correct?" "You always were too nosy for your own good," he hissed, dropping the pretense of civility. "This is exactly why things didn't work between us. You never understood the pressures I was under, the expectations. And Elaine does. She supports me. She understands what it takes to succeed." I laughed softly. "I hope that works out for both of you." "I truly do. Because a relationship built on convenience and opportunity rather than trust and respect will need all the luck it can get." Before he could respond, I noticed Elaine approaching, her expression tight with forced cheerfulness. "There you are," she said to Aaron, sliding her arm through his possessively. "Everyone's asking where you disappeared to." Her eyes darted between us, clearly trying to assess the situation. "Melva, I'm so glad you came," she added the words rehearsed and hollow. "Wouldn't have missed it," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Congratulations to you both. If you'll excuse me, I should rejoin my table." As I walked away, I heard them immediately begin speaking in hushed, urgent tones. The conversation had clearly unsettled them both. Another small victory in a day full of unexpected ones. My presence had accomplished exactly what I hoped, introducing reality into their carefully constructed fantasy. The reception continued with speeches, dinner, and dancing. I participated minimally, declining invitations to dance, but engaging in polite conversation. Throughout the evening, I caught Elaine watching me with increasing anxiety, her smile becoming more strained as the night progressed. Whatever perfect day she had envisioned my dignified presence had altered it irreversibly. As the cake cutting approached, I decided my mission was complete. I had shown up, maintained my composure, and demonstrated through my presence alone that their actions hadn't destroyed me. It was time to make a graceful exit. I was gathering my clutch when Jackson appeared at my elbow. "Leaving already?" he asked, his expression understanding. "I think I've made my point," I replied. "Any longer would be gratuitous." He nodded. "Let me walk you out." As we moved toward the exit, Elaine suddenly materialized in our path, slightly unsteady on her feet. The champagne she'd been drinking all evening was clearly taking effect. "Leaving without saying goodbye?" she asked, her voice carrying enough that nearby guests turned to watch the interaction. "After I specially invited you, I recognized the dangerous territory we were entering. A public confrontation would undermine everything I had accomplished with my dignified attendance. I was going to find you to thank you for including me," I lied smoothly. "The ceremony was beautiful." "Was it? You seem to be judging every minute of it." She slurred slightly, her perfect bride facade cracking under the influence of alcohol and stress. "Elaine," Jackson warned quietly. "Maybe not here." She ignored him, stepping closer to me. "Why did you really come, Melva? To show everyone how wronged you were, to make me feel guilty on my wedding day?" I kept my voice level, aware of the growing audience. "I came because my sister invited me to her wedding. That's all." "Your sister who stole your fiancé, you mean?" she said with a bitter laugh. "That's what everyone's thinking, right? Poor Melva betrayed by her own sister." The ballroom had grown quieter, guests abandoning pretenses of not listening. Aaron appeared behind Elaine, his expression alarmed as he realized what was happening. "Elaine, that's enough," he said sharply. "Let's go cut the cake." She shook off his hand. "No, I want to know why she's here looking so perfect, making everyone whisper, making me feel like the villain in my own wedding." The raw truth of her words hung in the air. Despite everything, despite being the bride celebrating her union with the man she had taken from me, Elaine felt like the villain. My presence alone had accomplished that. "If you feel like a villain," I said quietly, "that's something to examine within yourself. I haven't said a negative word about either of you today." "You didn't have to," she responded, tears threatening her carefully applied makeup. "Your Saint Melva act says it all." Aaron tried again to intervene, clearly embarrassed by the scene unfolding before their guests. "Elaine, please." "Not now." She turned on him suddenly. "Did you know she was coming? Did you invite her to prove something to me?" "What? No, of course not," he sputtered, confusion replacing embarrassment. "Because you talk about her all the time, you know. Melva would have organized this differently. Melva would have chosen better flowers. Melva, Melva, Melva." Each repetition of my name increased in volume. The ballroom was now completely silent, all pretense of private conversation abandoned. Aaron's face flushed deep red, whether from anger or humiliation, I couldn't tell. "That's not true," he insisted. "You're drunk and embarrassing yourself." Her laugh was brittle. Embarrassing myself. At least I'm honest about my feelings. Unlike you with your constant comparisons, your business meetings that always run late, your secret phone calls. I looked between them, understanding dawning. Aaron hadn't stopped his pattern of deception with me. He had simply transferred it to Elaine. My sister, in her moment of triumph, was discovering what I had learned months ago, that Aaron's loyalty extended only as far as his convenience. Jackson touched my arm, gently. "We should go," he whispered. "This isn't about you anymore." He was right. The confrontation had evolved beyond me, into a glimpse of their relationship's true foundation. Whatever healing or closure I had sought by attending had already been achieved. This raw moment between the newlyweds was not mine to witness. As Jackson and I moved quietly toward the exit, Elaine called after me, her voice suddenly vulnerable rather than accusatory. "Melva, wait." I paused, turning back. "Are you happy now?" she asked, tears finally spilling onto her cheeks. "Seeing that it's not perfect, that he still thinks about you." The question caught me off guard with its unexpected honesty. In that moment, I saw past the betrayal to the sister I had once protected and loved. She looked lost in her wedding gown, a girl playing dress-up in a woman's life she had stolen but didn't know how to manage. "This was never about making you unhappy, Elaine," I said quietly. "I genuinely hope you find happiness whether it's with Aaron or not. But real happiness can't be built on someone else's pain." I left then Jackson beside me as whispers erupted behind us. In the grand lobby, I exhaled deeply, feeling lighter than I had in months. Whatever happened next in their relationship was no longer my concern. I had faced my fear, maintained my dignity, and in doing so, reclaimed my power. "That was quite an exit," Jackson commented as we reached the street outside. "You okay?" I smiled, surprised to realize I genuinely was. "Better than okay. I'm free." The days following the wedding were surprisingly peaceful. I expected emotional aftershocks, regret, renewed anger, sadness, but instead found myself experiencing a calm I hadn't felt since before discovering Aaron and Elaine's betrayal. Attending the wedding had been a form of exposure therapy, forcing me to confront my worst fears directly. Having survived it with my dignity intact, the power those fears held over me diminished significantly. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members and mutual friends who had witnessed the dramatic scene at the reception. I responded minimally, neither encouraging gossip nor shutting down natural concern. "I'm doing well, thanks for checking in," became my standard reply, regardless of the specific query. My parents called the day after, both speaking on speakerphone from their kitchen. "Well, that wasn't quite how we expected the evening to end," my father began awkwardly. "I think that makes all of us, Dad," I replied, curled up on my apartment sofa with a mug of tea. "How are you both holding up?" My mother sighed heavily. "Elaine and Aaron left for their honeymoon this morning. The airport, not the hotel. There was some discussion about postponing." I could imagine the discussion, likely a full-blown argument following their public display of marital discord. "That's between them," I said, surprised by how genuinely I meant it. "Their relationship isn't my concern anymore." "We're proud of how you handled yourself," Dad said gruffly. "Not everyone could have been so composed." The compliment warmed me. Throughout my life, my father's approval had always meant the world to me, though I seldom admitted it aloud. "Thanks, Dad. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. For me." "Will you come for Sunday dinner next week?" Mum asked tentatively. "Just us. They'll still be away." The invitation represented a potential return to normalcy, a step toward rebuilding family connections that had been strained by divided loyalties. "I'd like that," I agreed. "I'll bring dessert." Work provided another anchor during this transitional period. I had tentatively begun accepting wedding photography bookings again, finding that the emotional triggers associated with bridal preparations had largely subsided. My first post-Aaron wedding shoot went smoothly, allowing me to capture genuine moments of joy without painful comparisons to what might have been. Jackson and I continued our unexpected friendship meeting occasionally for coffee or walks along the Charles River. There was no romantic pressure, just the comfort of someone who understood the complexity of the situation I'd navigated. He provided occasional updates on Aaron that I hadn't asked for, but found curiously healing to hear. The business is still struggling, he mentioned during one of our walks. The sterling financial connection hasn't been the immediate solution he hoped for. I nodded, watching a group of college students attempting to paddleboard. I'm not surprised. Financial problems usually require actual financial solutions, not just convenient marriages. Jackson glanced at me sideways. You really are over him, aren't you? The question gave me pause. Was I over Aaron? The anger had subsided. The crushing pain had lifted. But something lingering remained. Not love or longing, but a kind of awareness, like the phantom sensation of a removed ring. I'm over the relationship, I clarified. I'm over the idea that he was the right person for me. I'm still working through the trust issues that came with how it ended. That's fair, Jackson acknowledged. Betrayal like that leaves marks. Scars, I corrected. Marks fade. Scars remain, but stop hurting eventually. 1 week after the wedding, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't expected to see, Elaine. I stared at it for several rings, contemplating letting it go to voicemail before curiosity won out. Hello, I answered, my voice deliberately neutral. Melva. My sister's voice sounded small, lacking its usual confidence. I didn't think you'd answer. I almost didn't, I admitted. How's the honeymoon? A bitter laugh. Postponed, indefinitely. We had a huge fight at the hotel the night of the wedding, never even made it to the airport. I said nothing, unwilling to offer either sympathy or satisfaction. I owe you an apology, she continued after the silence stretched uncomfortably. Many apologies, actually, but I need to start somewhere. I'm listening, I said, surprising myself with my willingness to hear her out. What I did was unforgivable, taking Aaron lying to you, pretending it was true love when… She trailed off, emotion choking her voice. When part of it was definitely about his family connections and my career. I justified it by telling myself you weren't right for each other anyway, that I was doing you a favor in the long run. How generous of you, I couldn't help responding dryly. I deserve that, she acknowledged. I deserve much worse. The thing is, Mel, you were right at the wedding. He does compare me to you constantly. Nothing I do is quite right, quite what Melva would have done. I thought once we were married it would stop, but it's getting worse. A strange mixture of emotions washed through me. Vindication, certainly, but also an unexpected pang of sympathy for my sister, trapped in a relationship with a man who had already proven his capacity for betrayal. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I need you to know that I'm suffering too, she said, her voice breaking. Not that you should care, but also because I'm scared. Aaron isn't who I thought he was. Or maybe he is exactly who I knew he was, and I just thought I was special enough that he wouldn't treat me the way he treated you. The vulnerability in her voice reminded me of the little sister who had crawled into my bed during thunderstorms, seeking protection from the older sibling she trusted implicitly. That trust had been reciprocal once before ambition and convenience destroyed it. What do you want from me, Elaine? I asked directly. Forgiveness, advice, permission to leave him. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe just to know that you don't hate me forever. That someday there might be a path back to being sisters again. The request was enormous, perhaps premature given the wounds still healing. Yet something in her tone suggested genuine remorse rather than the performative guilt of her wedding invitation. I can't promise that, I said honestly. The trust between us is completely broken. Rebuilding it would take time, consistent effort and boundaries that you've shown no respect for in the past. I understand, she said quietly. I wouldn't trust me either. That said, I continued surprising myself. I don't wish you unhappiness. If your marriage isn't working, that's between you and Aaron. My advice would be to talk to a therapist, not your betrayed sister. That's fair, she acknowledged. More than fair, actually. We ended the call shortly after having reached the limits of what our fragile communication could sustain. I sat with the phone in my hand for several minutes afterward, processing the conversation. While I wasn't ready to welcome Elaine back into my life, the call had shifted something in my perception of the situation. She wasn't a cartoon villain who had stolen my happiness. She was a flawed human who had made terrible choices and was facing consequences she hadn't anticipated. The months that followed brought gradual healing and unexpected developments. Elaine and Aaron separated 6 months after their wedding, their relationship unable to withstand the shaky foundation it was built upon. She moved temporarily to Chicago for work, creating physical distance that made family gatherings less fraught for everyone. My photography business thrived as I expanded into new areas beyond weddings, developing a reputation for capturing authentic emotion in corporate branding campaigns. The creative challenge reinvigorated my passion for the craft, leading to a featured exhibit at a small but respected gallery in Cambridge. Jackson's friendship evolved gradually into something more, though we proceeded cautiously, both aware of the complicated history that had brought us together. His steady presence and straightforward communication helped rebuild my capacity for trust, one honest interaction at a time. Therapy remained a constant, providing space to process lingering trust issues and establish healthier boundaries in all my relationships. Diana helped me recognize that forgiveness wasn't a singular event, but a process, one that benefited my healing regardless of whether reconciliation with Elaine ever occurred. Approximately a year after the wedding, I encountered Aaron unexpectedly at a coffee shop near my studio. He looked different. The polished appearance he had always maintained, now slightly disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, suggesting sleepless nights. "Melva!" he acknowledged with a nod, clearly debating whether to engage further or pretend we hadn't seen each other. "Aaron," I replied calmly. "How are you?" He seemed surprised by the genuine question. "Managing. The business finally filed for bankruptcy. Dad's retirement plans are shot. It's been a challenging year." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I took no joy in his struggles. "You look good," he observed. "Happy." "I am," I confirmed. "Most days, anyway." An awkward silence followed before he spoke again. "I owe you an apology for everything. Not that it changes anything." "No, it doesn't," I agreed, "but I appreciate hearing it nonetheless." He nodded, seeming to understand that this brief exchange was all the closure we would ever have. "Take care, Melva." "You too, Aaron." Watching him walk away, I felt a final release. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance that this chapter of my life was truly complete. The man walking out the door no longer held any power over my emotions, positive or negative. He was simply someone I used to know, a character in an earlier draft of my life story. Elaine eventually returned to Boston, humbled by the failure of her marriage and the career setback that followed Aaron's family business collapse. Our relationship remained complicated, tentative attempts at rebuilding trust, occurring primarily during family gatherings, where we maintained polite, surface-level interactions. During one Thanksgiving dinner, she helped me clear dishes, while our parents argued good-naturedly about football in the living room. "I've been seeing someone new," she mentioned cautiously. "Nothing serious yet, but he's kind, honest." "That's good," I replied, loading plates into the dishwasher. "You deserve kindness and honesty." She paused, hands deep in soapy water. "Do I? After what I did?" I considered the question seriously. "Everyone deserves a chance at genuine happiness, Elaine, even people who've made terrible mistakes. The key is learning from them." "I have," she said quietly. "I'm trying to be someone you could be proud to call sister again, even if we never get back to where we were." The statement touched me more than I expected. "I see that," I acknowledged, "and I appreciate the effort. We weren't best friends again, probably never would be. The absolute trust that siblings ideally share had been irreparably damaged. But we were finding a new way to exist in each other's lives, one honest conversation at a time." The journey through betrayal taught me lessons I never wanted to learn, but now value deeply. I discovered my capacity for dignity under pressure, for maintaining boundaries without cruelty, for rebuilding trust selectively rather than closing myself off entirely. Most importantly, I learned that my worth was never tied to Aaron's choice to leave or Elaine's decision to betray. It remained constant within me, waiting to be reclaimed when I was ready. If you've ever experienced betrayal from those closest to you, remember that their actions reflect their character, not your value. Healing isn't linear, and forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean reconciliation. The most powerful response to betrayal isn't revenge, but rebuilding a life so authentic and fulfilling that the betrayal becomes merely a chapter in your story, not its defining plot point. Have you ever had to face someone who betrayed you? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that there's life after betrayal. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes showing up is the most powerful statement you can make.